Shalom and namaste, everyone. So, guess what? You guys are talking about my country again, so we're gonna have to watch it.
Where Israel is at, because after this we're going to do a whole Israel 101 episode because there's a lot to
Win.
learn about that nation. Where does Israel stand in this whole geopolitical game of the world? Because I'm sure the listeners have heard our other podcasts. We've spoken about America, India, Russia, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and we'll be touching upon them in this episode as well. What's Israel's role in this whole game?
Well, Israel is a nuclear weapons power in the Middle East.
No one. This is a secret, and people keep laughing about the fact that we have nuclear weapons. Israel never said we have nuclear weapons, so.
It's on the eastern coast of the Mediterranean. It has how many neighbors? It has Egypt, it has Syria,
Oh, you
it
have a
has
map.
Jordan, it has Lebanon, and Saudi Arabia as well, in the Gulf, in the south. And it has typically historically had a very adversarial relationship with its neighbors. It's fought at least 3 or 4 wars with them. It's come out on
More.
top each time. It's always been this conflict about territory. It's one territory that two parties seek. It's the Arabs and the Israelis, and the Israelis have always come out on top. So it's a very strategically located nation in this region, very powerful nation. They have always lived under a state of siege, essentially, always under existential threat. That's why they've developed a very powerful military, very powerful cyber capabilities, and all that.
This is a pure intellect game.
It is, yeah, in a sense it's an intellectual game, but it's also a warrior's game. It's a warrior mentality, it's a siege mentality, that we can be annihilated at any time, and we always have to be ready for that.
Well, let's just bring back the fact that Israel was rebuilt right now. Israel used to be a kingdom, and the Roman Empire conquered us after the Ottoman Empire. Like all the empires trying to conquer this land. And yes, we're in a survival mode way before Israel got rebuilt. So we are always in the because we know what happened to us. We already have the history to show what will happen if we will not fight for our land and for our lives. So this is why we're always in this survivor mode.
If there's an invasion next morning, we need to be ready for that. That's the kind of
Do you think the
mentality.
Holocaust played a role in creating this mentality in the first place?
Oh my god, I hate that question because Holocaust is a terrible thing, but this is one thing that happened to my people in a specific place. We know that 6 million Jewish people got murdered there, and way more other had to survive that terrible thing. But at the same time, bad things happen to Jewish people in the majority of the world. There are Jewish people in Kerala, we're in Kuchin. We're always remember. This is why we like your country so much. We love India because India never did some anti-Semitic terrible things to us. But at the same time, to say that the only reason, or to make it look like the reason why Israel exists, and I'm pretty sure this is what's going to be next, is because of the Holocaust, this is not true. We used to be a kingdom here before. In every synagogue you will walk into, you will open the prayer book and you will see that we pray to go back to our land. So to say one terrible thing that happened, it's not, I don't know, it's not the same. It's just like me asking, do you think the reason why India is really really care about her citizens and the army and stuff, it's just because what happened on the 26th of November? Terrible thing doesn't make, there is an entire history before and after that.
Yes, to a large extent, they made this vow that it will never happen again to us. The Holocaust and anything like that. So the Jews need their own homeland. That's what led to the
We have our homeland. It does. We need our own homeland. We have a homeland. Seriously.
creation of the Jewish homeland in Israel in 1948.
Nope. Nope. Way before that, 1948 was the rebuild of the nation of Israel, of this country. We were here before. Please remember that, because of stuff like this, people don't think I have the right to live in my country and I have the right to live where my ancestors lived in. because of things like this, because of people who think and people who say and have all this power and actually say Israel was established in 1948 and this from that day on Israel was a thing. No, we were a thing way before. This is our homeland. Like, I hate stuff like this.
And it's a very major power in the Middle East. They the neighbors have tried to destroy it time and time again. It's withstood the test of time.
Even before
It's
1948.
obviously been aided by the West. It's the major ally is the United States. The United States has aided Israel lots of times in a variety of means, material means, weapons and intelligence and whatnot. But they also have this very powerful intelligence agency called the Mossad. They also have the Shin Bet, which is the internal
Okay, the pictures you
powerful
just saw,
intelligence
hold on,
agency called.
not a Mossad agent, not a Shin Bet agent. You're just looking at random soldiers and random special groups. Not the Mossad, not the Shin Bet. You will not recognize them, by the way.
The Mossad. They also have the Shin Bet, which is the internal intelligence agency within Israel, the West Bank, Gaza, all that. And so, yeah, they are at the top of the game, and they essentially help in balancing the Middle East. The Middle East has always been in this state of strife. You know, the Middle East crisis has been going on since the end of the Second World War, maybe the First World War. And it's essentially something that the West has engineered by creating these artificial boundaries between nations. They artificially created nations like Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and so on and so forth. So it's always unstable, and Israel kind of balances that.
Why don't you talk about this lack of stability in the Middle East? Like, let's go get into this part of the podcast. What happened historically? What's happening now?
So the Middle East, historically, if you go back a couple of centuries, was part of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was
Hold on. What was before the Ottoman Empire? This is why I have such a difficult time with geopolitical people. When they're talking about history, they're starting from one point in history and not like acknowledging what happened before them. Before the Ottoman Empire, there was the Roman Empire, and before that was the Kingdom of Judea and the Kingdom of Israel. By the way, those two kingdoms were part of the 12 tribes of Israel. Yeah.
was this massively powerful empire based out of Constantinople, Istanbul, and it encompassed the Middle East. It also encompassed significant parts of Europe. And the ruler was the Ottoman Sultan, the Caliph, right? Now, in the 19th century, the Ottoman Empire began becoming decrepit, weak internally, right? The steel went out of the spine. The harem and the eunuchs took over in the court, and the military affairs were left to various governors, etc. So there was
Oh, I never saw a video telling the audience to make it faster.
this massive weakness that started creeping in.
Weird.
In the 19th century, the Europeans called the Ottoman Empire, they called Turkey the sick man of Europe, right? So there were all these tribal factions in the Middle East, the Hashemite faction, the Syrians, lots of the different tribal factions in the Middle East that sought independence from the Turkish yoke, from the Ottoman yoke.
Why?
What do you mean, why? Do you want to go back to living under the British ruling? Do you want all your jewelry and all your national resources to be installed and being used in different country? Do you want your people to have to be a part of the UK of the British army and go fight battles in different places in the world for the name of the queen or king or whatever they have right now? What do you mean, why?
Because everybody wants to rule themselves. The Arabs did not want to be ruled by Turks, right?
It's just ethnic rivalry.
It's an ethnic thing. I want to be ruled by myself. I want self-determination, autonomy, all that. And it's also about power, control, prestige, wealth, all those things. Yeah, why should they be wealthy at our expense? Let's keep our wealth for ourselves and that sort of thing. Then the First World War happened. Turkey sided with Germany. It was defeated. It was nearly partitioned and broken apart. But Mustafa Kemal Ataturk ensured that the West was defeated, and he created a smaller nation of Turkey out of it. In the second half of the First World War, the British promised the ruler of Mecca that they would support an independent Arabian nation, a Saudi Arabia, essentially, yeah, if they provided support to the British against the Ottoman Empire. So the British fomented these divisions. They old divide and rule policy. Yeah,
What was in Saudi Arabia back then?
oil.
But what was it as a country? Like, what was it called?
I there was a region called the Transjordan. There was a region called there was the Meccan Kingdom.
Okay.
Let me explain. The names that we know right now as countries and stuff, it was not this case like back in the days. Back in the days, every tribe, every ethnicity has their own name and their own boundaries. Now, boundaries were not like, lines that someone drew. It was just like, around the area. People know this field is kind of the boundary between this, between that. They usually go by river, mountains, things that are explain the difference between the countries. This is why there's a lot of conversation whether Asia and Europe is an actual one continent, because there's nothing, difference between them. So a lot of people also call this Eurasia. So it was not really a name of a country, it was more the names of the tribes who were around those places.
Various kingdoms were there in this
Like
region.
tinier countries.
Smaller, yes, smaller. But
Tinier
they
countries, that's sweet.
took one of these guys as their client and they promised him the entire peninsula. In essentially the entire peninsula in exchange for support to the British against the Ottoman Empire. Because until that time, the Ottoman Empire still ruled over this region. And the British sought this because of the very strategic Suez Canal. Right?
Before they're talking about the Suez Canal, something really important about my people, because hey, I only react to the Israeli part of this, and this is a long video, so go watch the original video in the original channel. There was a group here that we were under the Ottoman Empire ruling, and that was terrible. They had all these laws against us. We have like a lot of terrible things happened to us under the ruling of the Ottoman Empire, and this is why when the British tried to occupy our land, some people thought that maybe this will be a good thing. There was this Jewish group, their name was Nili, and they also helped the British defeat the Ottoman Empire here and try to help the British rule us. We were not aware at the same, like at that time, that the British, all they're trying to do is to, you know, take everything we have, steal all our, everything we have, and just to use it for their own benefits, and just enjoy watching us, suffer. But this is something we didn't know, but this is actually something in our history. We right now, a lot of people don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing that nearly actually helped the British control us. But like I said, this is not a fun, friendly channel. This is more like this is the information, and I want you guys to have the entire good, bad, ugly information.
Right. So they had already taken ownership of Suez and the Suez Canal region from the Egyptians because the Egyptian economy was, engineered into near bankruptcy. And that's why the ruler of Egypt was forced to sell his stake in the Suez Canal Company to the British. And the British took over. The Suez Canal was built in 1859 or 69 or something like that.
Very rookie input here, but this is for people who are hearing the word Suez Canal for the first time. Basically, your naval trade is very important for your economy, and the naval trade for the British, especially when they're importing things from India and Asia in general, they would have to go around South Africa, which is a much more dangerous sea route. There's piracy, there is storms, etc., etc. Suez Canal gives you a shortcut. So
Massive shortcut.
Until this day, the Suez Canal is actually being used. A couple of, I don't remember, COVID just messed with my brain, but a couple of years ago, there was a ship stuck in the Suez Canal, and all the other ships were stuck after that. And everyone around this area, the Middle East and the UK, and realized how much the Suez Canal is important, because until from back in those days until right now, it's really it's being used a lot, and a lot of ships with a lot of things going through that place. We know that a lot of orders we ordered from all over the world got stuck in the Suez Canal, and we actually received emails explaining to us why our orders are being stuck in the middle of the ocean or in the middle of the canal. So we had to wait patiently. Yeah, and I didn't lost. I mean, I got my Purim costume. If you don't know what Purim, I made a video about it. Go look it up. I got my Purim costume way after the holiday Purim ended because my costume was stuck in the Suez Canal while this was happening.
Yeah, it saves money, it ensures safety, etc., etc. It's just an easier way of naval trade. Let's get back to AC.
So the Suez Canal was called the spinal cord of the British Empire. That's how they connected to India. That's how they stole and plundered the wealth out of India and transferred it to the UK.
Also from
So
here.
Suez was strategically vital to the British Empire, to the continuation of the British Empire. And for that, they needed access and control to the surrounding regions like the Arabian Peninsula, the Middle East, all that. So they fomented these problems, these revolts against the Ottoman Empire, etc. Then the Ottoman Empire crumbled at the end of World War One, which is when these various kingdoms were formed. So the British created this mandate of Palestine, I think they called it, and they created this artificial nation of Iraq. So Iraq is almost 50% Shia, and the Shias and Sunnis have.
Okay, he said the word Palestine. If you can just like go watch the main video in my channel that explains about what is Palestine actually stand for, please do that and then come back to this video because I don't want you guys to get the misinformation and to think that Palestine is actually a thing without knowing what it actually stands for.
Long-standing disputes that go back almost more than 1,000 years, right? So they created this art. The Western powers have this tendency to create artificial nations by drawing straight lines on the map. So if you look at Africa, it's all straight lines.
Yeah, and that's the sign from a geopolitical perspective of a richer nation f***ing shit up for you. Like, and f***ing shit up for your future. That's what the listeners should know.
So what this does is that it divides communities across nations, and it puts communities that historically don't belong together in the same nation. That causes problems, long-term, very long-term problems. That's what you see in Iraq. That's what you see across the Middle East. Even Saudi Arabia essentially is an artificially created nation. It's never been one nation the way it is today.
Also, if you look at my country right now, you can see that there are some straight lines and stuff. But if you actually read the Bible or if you actually study archaeology and dig a little in the ground, you can see where are the areas where the Israelis, the old Israeli, the 12 tribes of Jacob used to live in. This is why Israel is always saying, we're not trying to be a big, massive country. We just want our land back. We just want where our people lived. We just want to live there. That is it.
And the Saudi, the House of Saud is again essentially a client state. It was a client state of the UK. Later on, it became a client state of the US, which it in some ways still is, and so on. It's all about oil. It's all about the resources of the region, and so on.
When did they figure that there's oil in the Gulf?
I think this began in the 19th century, if I'm not
We don't
mistaken.
have
You know,
any.
Okay.
oil exploration became a big thing. They called it black gold. It was so valuable. That's when the entire world's economy started being driven by oil. Later, you had super tankers. So I'm fast forwarding a little bit more,
Sure.
but after the Second World War, the super tankers started being used, and the Suez Canal was too narrow for that. So they had to still go around the Cape of Good Hope, South Africa.
What is a super tanker?
A super tanker is a massive ship. It's sometimes larger than an aircraft carrier.
Really?
Yes.
And it's purely used for oil?
Yes, it has these small compartments in which you keep oil. It's not a big, large compartment because when the oil sloshes, it can tip the ship over. So they make these smaller compartments, small cells, but it's essentially fully filled with oil.
Wow.
Massive, massive ships.
Okay.
And that's what they used to transport oil. They also had pipelines which went through Asia, but mostly super tankers. And these super tankers eventually were made so big they could not go through the Suez Canal. So they had to anyway go through the Cape of Good Hope route. But that's an aside. So all of these things were happening. The First World War saw the fragmentation of the Ottoman Empire, the nascent creation of what would later on become Israel, and that.
Rebuild Israel. We used to be a country before the Ottoman Empire. I know I keep stopping this video and telling you this again and again. However, this is super important because if you want to talk geopolitical, you need to know the geography and the politic that before what you decided was the period of time that you were talking about.
That's where all the territorial disputes started. Two communities, two sets of people seeking the same territory. It was once called the land of the Philistines. Later, it was
Nope. No, it is not. Thank you so much for again not even trying to study the history of this place.
called Palestine.
Nope.
The British mandate of Palestine, they started settling Jews there. After World War II, they
Nope.
had suffered the Holocaust and they
Nope.
sought a Jewish nation. In 1948, the first big problem was given to the UN, which had just been formed. Here's your big problem. Deal with it. And then the nation of Israel was created, and the same day it was created, all the neighbors attacked,
Oh, that
which was the
that actually
1948
happened.
Arab-Israeli war, which Israel succeeded in winning. It was a drawn-out conflict. It did not end immediately, but the Israelis succeeded in surviving and defeating the Arab neighbors. Then there were multiple conflicts down the line.
Let's talk about the UN. You just
Okay.
mentioned.
No, that is it for me. So many no's inside of this video. Please educate yourself. I know Abhijit Ji, I love going to his Sunday live streams, but this is not true. And the second you're telling people, and the second like people are really looking up for you and like worshiping you or and thinking you're really a smart person. So when you say stuff like this, people will believe you. So please be very, very careful with the information you say and the way you're presenting things as if this is like all of a sudden they just throw a bunch of Jews to that place and they call it Israel. That is so weird. Are you serious? We have so many archaeologists coming here studying what happened back in the day when my people, my ethnicity was here developing this land. You cannot act like this is just randomly a selected place. Please, please, please stop. You cannot call the land of the Plishtim Palestinians because those are two separate people. You know who are the Plishtim? Like the Plishtim who actually lived in this area next to the Gaza Strip back in the day where Israel was a kingdom. The Plishtim in Hebrew means the invaders. Plishtim, Polesh, to invade. They right now archaeologists suspect that they came from the ancient Greece, ancient Aegis islands next to Greece. So please, please, please get some information before you decide to spread information, misinformation, wrong information, information that can actually make people think that I don't belong here. This is so annoying to see smart, intelligent people knowing absolutely I don't know if he doesn't know about my country or is it just like an anti-Semitic thing or is he just like against Israel? I know people say, oh, he's a geopolitical person, but come on. This is not a geopolitical thing. If you're a geopolitical person, you know what happened also during like geopolitical back in the days. We used to be a kingdom here. Israel is rebuilt itself. This is not the first time we were here. We have so many proofs. And please, please, please stop giving misinformation about us. And also, please start talking to Israeli people. Learn about us, and you know what? Don't learn about us. Don't talk about us. Talk to us. Have a communication. See, I wanted to learn about Bahalat. You know what I did? I talked to people from that country. I developed this thing. I'm able right now to create this platform for us to have a conversation. I'm sorry for my bad English again, but I'm really upset about this. This is too much. The fact that you guys are talking about Israel with misinformation without any one Israeli person who say yes or no, or okay, this is my point of view and this is how this is my ancestors really lived it. What are you doing? Do you understand how many people watch this video? Let's just see. So many people saw this video and so many people got that misinformation and so many people right now thinking what he said is true. How disappointing this is. What if I'm gonna make a terrible video about India saying absolutely foolish things and people will think this is the reality? Do you understand why this is so frustrating for me? My people have fought for this land for centuries. Even before Arab came to this country, even before Islam was a thing, even before Christianity was a thing, because what a shocker, they're both two religions based on my religion. We were here way before everything he just said. So the fact that he just like brushed it off, didn't acknowledge the fact that we were here and we have the right to go back to my country, to my land, and just like, oh, this is just like something that happened after the Holocaust. Seriously? No, it's not. Read what we pray. Ask Israeli person, why do we need this land? Why this land is important to us? I'm sorry, but this is too much. I'm sick and tired of telling you guys to have a conversation with an actual Israeli person and not create videos about us. Please, please, please educate yourself in a better way. Thank you and goodbye.